So the problem we're going to consider in this video is one that says, for some sentences, there are some sorts of odd meanings, weird meanings that we can't rule out. And the way the objection goes is by considering really long sentences that kind of contain lots of crazy components. Now, there's lots of different examples you could come up with, anything will do, and really we would want the example to be very, very long. So I'm not going to, in its entirety, give you a concrete example, but I'll tell you how we might construct one. So we might come up with some sentence S. And the way we might do it is we might make it a very long disjunction with a collection of or claims. And what I'll do is I'll make the first disjunct something kind of sane and plausible, like it's sunny today. And then we'll just add lots of weird disjuncts to it. So it's sunny today, or grass is yellow, or insects are fish, or my dog ate a toad, or ... You could just keep adding really odd stuff to the sentence. Now, the result would be a sentence of English. How do we know? Well, for instance, it seems to be something that might be true. So, if it's actually sunny today, as it is when I'm recording, then this very long, weird disjunction would be true. That seems like a good reason to think it's a genuine English sentence. It would be true, despite the fact that it's very obviously a weird sentence and not something that anybody would ever say. But the fact that nobody would ever say it doesn't necessarily mean it wouldn't be meaningful. This part is clearly meaningful. In fact, all the parts are clearly meaningful, and the truth of this means the whole thing is true. So we're going to focus on these very long, weird kinds of sentences. That's one I just sort of came up with on the fly. Any kind of example like that will do. So what we'll do is focus on a sentence like that. So that's a sentence of English. And we'll imagine a new version, a new language, which is almost identical to English, except for the fact it changes the meaning of this sentence, this very long, weird sentence. And let's say that in this new language, this sentence actually means the cat is on the mat, or something like that. So that's not what the sentence actually means in English. The sentence actually means something much weirder. But we'll imagine there's this other language. We can come up with another language which is exactly like English, except this sentence means something different. It means the same thing as we mean by the cat is on the mat. And let's call this language, just for lack of a better word, Schminglish. Now it's important to see that Schminglish, as we've defined it, is a different language from English. They're almost identical in what their sentences mean, except that this sentence is a part of Schminglish but means something different from what it means in English. So here's the problem. It looks like we are English speakers and not Schminglish speakers. In the language that we actually speak, this very long, weird sentence means it's sunny today, or grass is yellow, or insects are fish, or my dog ate a toad, or so on. In English, this sentence does not mean the cat is on the mat. It's just not what it means in English. It means that in Schminglish, but we're not Schminglish speakers. If we were to say that, that's not what we would be trying to communicate. The problem for Lewis's theory is that, according to the conventional account of language use, it looks like we are both English speakers and Schminglish speakers. Let me now explain why that might be so. Well, here's one way it's been argued that we would count as Schminglish speakers. So we know that to be truthful in English is to try to avoid saying false things. Are we truthful in Schminglish? Well, the only respect in which Schminglish differs from English is with respect to this sentence. So if we're truthful regarding all the other sentences, then all we need to do are think about this sentence. And do we try to avoid saying this sentence if it's false? Well, we try to... In general, we would just try to avoid saying this sentence full stop. So in particular, we will try to avoid saying it when it's false. We will never say this sentence when it's false, but just because we will never ever say it in the first place. So it looks like we sort of trivially count as being truthful in Schminglish. What about being trusting in Schminglish? Well, remember, Schminglish is almost identical to English, except with respect to this sentence. So if we're trusting with respect to all the other sentences, then this is the only one we need to check. And one way it's been argued here that maybe we're trusting in English, trusting in Schminglish is, well, would we believe what people are saying if they said this sentence? Again, you might think, well, the question is kind of trivial because it would never arise. Nobody would ever say this sentence in the first place, so maybe we just trivially count as being trusting. That's one way of pressing the objection, is that we also count as Schminglish speakers, because maybe we are both truthful and trusting with respect to Schminglish. We would never try to say this sentence, and it looks like nobody ever would say this sentence in the first place, so the question of being trusting with respect to this sentence just simply doesn't arise. If that's true, you might think, well then don't we just sort of automatically count as Schminglish speakers? But as we said, that looks like it's wrong. That's the wrong result. We are not Schminglish speakers. This sentence does not mean the cat is on the mat in the language that we speak. So it's a bad prediction of Lewis's theory if it says that we could be speaking a language where it does. That's one objection, that maybe we count as both Schminglish and English speakers. A different sort of related objection is that, well, maybe we don't even count as English speakers, strictly speaking. So this problem, just think about this sentence. It doesn't necessarily cause a problem for being truthful in English, because I said, well, we would never, if it was false, we would never say it, but that's just because we would never say it full stop. But on the other hand, does it necessarily look like we would be truthful with respect to this in English? It's kind of hard to think about because it's a very unlikely situation for anybody to ever say this sentence. But one way that Lewis put this when he considered this objection in a later paper is like, well, if somebody said a sentence like this, a sentence that's like, keep in mind, a really crazy sentence, would your first reaction be to think that they're telling you something that's true? And Lewis says, well, it looks like the answer is no. The sentence is so weird and crazy that if anybody said this to you, you would think that either they were joking, or maybe they had gone mad, or something like that had arisen. It looks like the last thing you would do is that when somebody said a sentence like this, is to believe them. Or at least in most situations you can imagine, most nearby possibilities where somebody said a sentence like this, it wouldn't look like your reaction would be to believe them. And that's a problem, because then the question is, well, do we really count as truthful in English if that's the case? Because to be truthful in English, it has to be that we generally believe what people tell us when they tell. We generally believe what these sentences say in English when people say them to us. But this is a sentence where it looks like we would never tend to believe what it says, even if somebody said it to us. Because just the fact that they would be saying that sentence in the first place seems to indicate that something very weird is going on. So these kinds of long, weird sentences raise sort of two related problems. We want to be able to rule out that we're talking Schminglish, this invented language where this really long, weird sentence actually has just a simple meaning. We want an explanation of why are we not speaking that language, and it's not clear that Lewis's theory gives us an explanation. On the other hand, there's a worry that maybe we don't even count, strictly speaking, as speaking English, because this is a sentence of English with a very weird meaning, but it's not really obvious whether we would be trusting with respect to people who said that sentence. And so it's not clear, well, how does this sentence get the sort of weird meaning it would have in the first place? So that's this problem of long sentences. I will say something very quickly about how this problem is connected to the first one that we talked about word meaning. Because if you think about it, part of what's problematic here is that, well, what we'd like to be able to say is that, well, even though nobody would ever say this sentence, the reason it means what it does is because the meanings of the words in it are fixed. Because we already know it's, well, sunny means sunny, and grass, and yellow, and we know what all the words in it mean. We would like to be able to say, well, the reason it means what it does is because we just put all those meanings together. But given what we said in the last video, that's exactly what Lewis cannot say. Because his conventional account of meaning actually doesn't pin down word meaning. It only pins down, at best, sentence meaning. And because of that, we're deprived of the obvious explanation of what we want to say here. Because the obvious thing we want to say here is, well, the reason why it means what it does is because the word meanings are fixed, and then the words are just put together in a particular sort of way. But Lewis's account does not fix word meaning in the first place. And so it's not something he's able to say in this situation.